Hello and welcome to Unify CipherSoft's webinar on the proven steps for in-house Oracle Forms migration projects. And we're going to start in just a few moments, but I saw that there's quite a few people on already, so we wanted to let you know we're here, but there's still some people logging on and getting their audio set up. So we're going to just wait another 2 minutes or so before we get started. But I wanted to let you know that we're here and we'll be starting soon. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Unify's webinar on proven methodologies for in-house Oracle Forms migration projects. This is your host, Matt Brunquell. Before we get started, I want to review a few housekeeping items. For those of you new to Unify Corporation, the host for today, we're a publicly traded software company that's been in business for over 30 years. We're known for being the first to deliver a relational database in the Unix environment. And since then, we've delivered development software products that run across different databases and platforms geared towards building and modernizing business applications and really geared to the business application developer who places a premium on productivity over low-level coding. Now today, our business has expanded beyond database and development products into migration solutions like what we'll be going over today, as well as email archiving. Now, we encourage questions on the webinar, and the way to do that is to use the Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar. It's the button with the question mark. There's also a chat button, but it just makes it easier for Lorraine and I to look in one panel for the questions to make sure we address all of them. So use the Q&A button, if you will. Now, I mentioned Lorraine Ruddy, who is our Director of Customer Services in our Oracle practice. She'll be driving the demo portion today, and I've asked her to pipe in during the presentation where appropriate. Given her role, she has plenty of experience working with our customers on these Oracle Forms modernization projects. Now let's review the agenda. There we go. I got it. So the objective for today's webinar is to provide you with the proven steps for migrating Oracle Forms applications to Java. Migration projects are a low-cost and effective alternative to a rewrite that retain your investment in the application. So we'll start with an introduction that includes an overview of CipherSoft and review the steps in a migration project with our CipherSoft conversion tool. Next, we'll detail out each of the migration steps further. These steps include analyze, prepare, and converting the application. And this will be followed with an overview of the kind of output once the application is converted, and we'll follow this with the demonstration so you can really see how easy it can be to migrate and deploy an Oracle Forms app into a Java environment. And then we'll follow that with the Q&A session. So CipherSoft is a wholly owned subsidiary of Unify Corporation, and CipherSoft has an established and very successful practice for modernizing Oracle Forms applications. We're a member of the Oracle Modernization Alliance, or OMA, and the OMA is an Oracle initiative to help customers modernize their legacy applications and infrastructure. And CipherSoft is the only member of the OMA with a focus on Oracle Forms. Now, customers have built very successful applications in Oracle Forms, but they're looking to modernize in today's technologies to keep them relevant. And there are several options that include web enabling the application through an upgrade to Forms 10G or 11, rewriting the application, or an automated migration. And each of these options has their pros and cons to consider depending on your requirements. CipherSoft offers services around all of these options, and choosing the right path is actually a webinar topic in itself. But for today's webinar, we're going to focus on the migration steps for an automated migration or conversion over to Java. So let's review the steps in a migration project that we'll be detailing further. There are 4 high-level steps that we'll detail out: analyze, prepare, convert, and acceptance. And you can see in convert, we also talk about modify and, of course, testing. No conversion tool is 100% automatic or a silver bullet. There will be some manual effort, and you still have to test to ensure the functionality has migrated to your satisfaction. But we'll go into all of this in just a little bit more. So the first step in the migration project is analysis of the Forms application. The CipherSoft solution includes an analyzer to inspect the Oracle Forms application files to be migrated. So the input can either be the binary format of the forms, menus, and libraries. So these are the FMV, MMV, and PLL files. Or you can do the text representation of the forms, menus, and libraries created by your Oracle Forms developer. These are the TXT and PLD extensions. So you can use either as input for the analyzer. If you're using that binary format, all the files should be in one directory, so the analyzer results are complete in one report. You know, a customer can also send the application files to CipherSoft to run the analyzer, or you actually have the option, you can download the analyzer to your environment, run it against your application, and send the results to us, and then we can come back to you with what it looks like. And the reason I mention this is it's very nice. I mean, the analyzer is very nice in and of itself, but it's a way for you to really be able to determine the effort and what's going to be involved before you commit to the conversion tool. Now, what the analyzer does, just to let you know, is it parses the application and it looks for any known unsupported built-in functions, and it reports back how many occurrences of these functions exist and the exact location of them in the code. Examples of these supported functions include things like goto and the web2k util. Now, the analyzer also determines the conversion complexity levels of each of the forms. So the different complexity levels are low, moderate, complex, and very complex. So there's 4 of them. And it'll summarize, okay, you have so many of these forms that are low, so many that are moderate, etc. And all of this output helps to determine the effort and time involved. And CipherSoft works with you to scope that out. Now, there's some decisions that have to be made on unsupported built-in functions, but let's look at that on the next slide, along with some other decisions that need to be made during this analyze step. So in addition to the de-supported functionality flagged by the analyzer, some other choices should be made during this stage of the project. These include the user presentation layer, or GUI. CipherSoft did a comparison of the main options in our webinar last month, and if you're interested, a recorded version is available for viewing on our website. But for now, just keep in mind that you have both web options in a browser, as well as an option for a Java client on the desktop, and in 11G, actually, the Web Center, having your presentation layer in the Web Center is also an option. The target Java platform for your application should be identified at this stage as well. This includes the JDK. So most customers are on 1.5 or 1.6 these days, but we still have some folks on 1.4, as well as the application server. So applications converted with CipherSoft will run on most Java application servers. But for those of you wondering, we've seen most of our customers on either the Oracle application server, some version of it, WebSphere, or Tomcat. But again, there are other options, and I bring that up because, in the world of Java, we talk to so many customers, and, Java is nice because you have a lot of choices, but it also means that everyone out there seems to have their own piece or component of some Java layer, if you will. Now, CipherSoft, on the de-supported functionality that gets flagged in the analyzer, typically what we do is we review those de-supported functions found by the analyzer for your application on a case-by-case basis with you to determine if the same functionality is needed in the new environment. So in other words, okay, this is not supported over in Java, but what needs to be done with it over in Java? Do we actually need it over there, or because we're now in the Java environment, is something different needed, or does it need to be modified to fit in? Just for example, modal windows for LOVs and alerts and messages are displayed in the same window in the case of the ADF option as your GUI presentation layer. There's things like that, plenty of other examples that we can go into if you have questions on that. The other thing to keep in mind is in instances where there's a de-supported function needed on the new platform and it occurs many times in the application and the analyzer will surface that, what CipherSoft may do is incorporate support for it in the automated conversion tool. So each time we do a project or a customer does a project and we look at those analyzer results for them, we look at things like, well, this shows up a lot of times in the application. Let's incorporate this into the automated conversion. There's benefits to it. And as a result of that, that's how the conversion tool has gotten as as automatic as it has, because we found a lot of wins like that in there. Now, on phases, that last bullet, what we mean by that is we recommend that migration's done in a phased approach. So you have a phase one or first phase being small, where you're converting no more than 5 forms. This way, the conversion process and solutions for D-supported functions can be tried and tested to ensure you're going to get the user acceptance before completing the entire migration. And then the remainder of the project can be broken down into manageable sets or phases, typically grouped by functionality, so that as these phases are migrated, they can be moved to testing and into production without the big bang approach. So what this does is, instead of converting everything and waiting for all of that conversion to be unit tested and so forth before you get to user acceptance, when you break it into these phases, you can do that first conversion, do your unit testing, and while you're having the user acceptance testing going on there, you can be already working on the next phase in terms of converting it and going through the processes with it. So once the analysis is completed and the decisions have been made, there are some preparation steps done prior to running the application through the automated conversion. So these include, you basically freeze the application, if you will, or modifications to the applications to be converted, and typically set up a separate instance of the database to be used and tested as part of the conversion. So you want this clean, separate instance to do your conversion in. You do the removal of the D-supported functionality from the existing forms files, and you identify all of the forms, menus, PL/SQL libraries, all of those files that the application uses, because all of these will be run through the conversion tool, as you'll see in the demo portion. You also look at any other supporting files required to run the forms. So examples of these include icons for toolbars, things like that, as well as prepare your test scripts that you're going to be using both for unit testing as well as the user acceptance testing or other testing that you're going to be doing later on. The other thing is just some specifics on the conversion environment as well. So in other words, to prepare for conversion, you want to have that conversion environment set up. What that consists of is the Oracle Forms developer with database access entry in, well, I'll just say your database access entry. I won't go into the tnsnames.ora file, that kind of stuff. But, you have your Oracle Enterprise Manager, Toad, or a similar tool with access to the schema. You want to have installation of the Java JDK, as well as installation of a Java IDE, such as Oracle JDeveloper or a similar Java IDE. We've seen others. We use JDeveloper internally when we're involved in conversion projects, but we've seen things like RSA, other, Rational, things like that. And then you want to have the installation of your Java application server, like Apache Tomcat or your Oracle App Server for running the compiled Java applications once you have them converted. So those are all the things you want to have set up in your environment once you're ready to do the conversion. Now let's talk about the actual conversion process. What you're going to do is, even before you run the converter, depending on the timing and stretching out of the project, you might run the analyzer on the forms once more just to compare the initial results, compare it to the initial analyzer results to make sure there's no changes or nothing new that's been introduced. And you compile the forms to ensure that no files are missing. But we could probably put that as part of the prepare as well. But at this point, you're ready to actually perform the conversion. And we'll actually show how that's done in the demo process. So I won't go into describing it in any detail at this point. Let's just say you're going to push some buttons and run through a wizard process, as you'll see. And then once you do that, you're going to compile the Java code that's generated, and you're going to remove any conversion-related errors, deploy that then into the application server, and perform your unit testing and or any regression testing to ensure the converted forms display and perform the basic functions that you're expecting to see over there, and then make any necessary changes so that you get there. And this unit testing is kind of the test sub-bullet you saw, we mentioned in one of the early slides, as well as the modify. The actual automated conversion piece is really fairly quick, as you'll see in the demo. Even with more complex applications, you'll be surprised how quickly the conversion itself takes. It's really the testing that really accounts for most of the time and effort in these automated migrations. Now, the CipherSoft tool creates a WAR file for deployment as part of the conversion step. And if multiple phases are, if you decided on multiple phases for your project during the analyze step, really each of these phases will be delivered as a separate set of converted forms or WAR files. So since I mentioned the WAR file generated as part of the conversion, let's take a moment to kind of talk about this output. The WAR file is what gets deployed to the application server to run the Java application. And this is, if you guys are new to Java, this is standard J2EE architecture and model for deploying Java applications, which our product adheres to. And so what's included in that WAR file that gets created is basically the Java source code for maintaining and extending your application. And there's really two portions to this. The first one is the Java source code of your application itself. And the second one, you'll see on that bullet, is the Java source for Express. And what this is these are the Java classes and the libraries that have been provided by CipherSoft to emulate the Oracle Forms framework in Java. So, as an Oracle Forms developer, you know that Oracle Forms had all of this built-in functionality for things like message handling, the query, update, delete logic for, your objects, for being database aware. All of that was built in so that you didn't have to do low-level coding. It's really how you could be so productive in building your business applications in Oracle Forms in the first place. And focus on your business logic without doing the low-level coding. So CipherSoft recreated that functionality with standard Java classes and libraries so you can continue to focus on the source code of your application. So, but keep in mind, you get that Java source code of that framework, if you will, to this as part of your conversion so that you can maintain and extend it as you like. That's not something that you're stuck to CipherSoft with. You get that. So the final high-level step is acceptance. And this involves the user acceptance testing, of course, and any other testing like performance testing and load testing, depending on your organization's testing process. We've really seen a wide spectrum on the level of testing, from very basic user acceptance testing to a very intensive, rigorous process. And the CipherSoft migration tool really lends itself to either end of this spectrum and anywhere in between. And then, of course, the other piece of the acceptance step is really resolving issues reported through the testing. So if users come up with behavior that they're expecting a different way or things that might not work, you have to get those issues resolved. Now, when CipherSoft's involved in a project, whether it's because you're using us for support, because you're using the tool, or you've decided to have us do the work, issues are reported through our online JIRA system where both the customer and CipherSoft can track and report on all issues reported during testing. But you may have your own, it just depends again on where you're at in the spectrum. You may have your own process and system for tracking and resolving these issues. But we provide that as well if need be, to ensure that you get this project to final user acceptance testing and you have that production to production migration, if you will, as a success. So with that, and at this point, let's go ahead and demonstrate the conversion step in a migration project. And so before I give this over to Lorraine, just some key points to keep in mind during the demonstration. We're going to convert the Oracle Summit application. So it's not as complex as some of your applications out there, but it does have menus, libraries, and business logic in addition to these front-end presentation layer forms. Now, since this application, it's going to go through the conversion process without any issues, that would show up in the analyzer. We're also going to go ahead and show you some analyzer input from a different application, just so you can get a feel for the data in the analyze step as well. Now, the other thing is this is a full conversion, so it's doing everything. The user interface, all the business logic, the data access, it's a complete conversion. But just note that you could also choose to do just pieces of conversion with the tool. So you could just convert the PL SQL. You'll actually see a little button in there where you can do that. Or once you converted this, you could also choose just to convert the presentation layer again and again into some of the different options. So this actually allows you, the tool allows you to mix and match different presentation layers. You don't have to reconvert the entire app when you want to do that. And you can actually coexist this with your forms applications as well, so that if you're doing the phased approach, you can have some phases converted working with phases that aren't. Now, when we do this, we're going to actually show a like-for-like conversion in a browser presentation layer, but we can also use customer-defined templates for those that want a new look and feel for their converted applications. But just for the purposes of this, we're just going to show, I think you'll be impressed with how similar the application looks in a browser. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lorraine for the demonstration.
Thanks, Matt. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop. And then we can go ahead and start. As Matt laid out in the presentation, typically the analyzer step is done prior to the conversion in order to kind of highlight some areas where some additional work might be necessary, either on the generated code side or even possibly in the Oracle forms prior to the conversion. So I just want to start with that. I just want to show you a sample of the output of the analyzer. This is just an Excel spreadsheet. This is one of the output files from the Exodus analyzer, and it gives us some information on, you'll see here where there's a list of 4 forms, some libraries, some menus. Those are the 3 types of modules that the Exodus converter will convert that Matt mentioned. It breaks them down based on a number of variables as to determine their level of complexity. So in this particular case, there happens to be one simple form, one moderate form, one complex form, one very complex form. Those kinds of metrics help us to determine the actual converter piece. When you feed the form through the converter tool, takes simply a matter of minutes. The impact of this, whether it's a simple form or a very complex form, is in what work is required after you create the generated code. Obviously, the tool is not, it's not the silver bullet. It doesn't convert 100% of the code 100% of the time. The more complex a form is, the higher the possibility that there will be some manual work required to actually duplicate the exact functionality in the Java environment. So, again, simple forms might take about 30 minutes or an hour of kind of extra work. A very complex form might take a couple of days. So these types of metrics help us to determine how long a project will actually take when you're trying to budget your resources and your time. And then if I scroll across, and if you look at these headings across the top, these are some of those D-supported functions that Matt mentioned. Things that we know are out there in various versions of forms releases, and for example here, this D2 KW utility, that's a call to that library, and that library is no longer, it's not even supported within Oracle Forms 10G. It was back used in earlier versions like 6i. So calls to that library need to be changed to something else, I mean, depending on what the functionality was, because it's just not available. It's not something that we convert. So this just gives us a list of all of the occurrences in a particular form or library of a D-supported command. And the other piece of the output of the analyzer is this actual text file. And again, this is just a sample. It lists all the forms and their sizes. Breaking them out, I just want to get down to a little further down. The last half of this text report gives us, in a particular form, this run product command, for example, it's not that it's de-supported, it's used for calling reports. And so what happens during the conversion is once the code is generated, we actually just have to modify that code in order to be able to call the report in the same way. So this just highlights what file is it found in, what the line number is, how many occurrences there are. So this is used once we're at the point of cleaning the modules, preparing them for the conversion. This will point us to where the issues are and what we need to do. So that's just a sample. Those are the two kinds of output that we get from our analyzer that help us proceed with a conversion project. So Matt mentioned that we were going to convert the Summit application. This is the Summit application running in Form 6I, just so you can see it. It's as Matt said, it's not a huge application, but it is representative of the types of things that are used, functions, canvases. You'll see here there's a task canvas, there are lists of values, things like that. So this is the application running in Form 6I. And then we're just going to run through the actual conversion process. So this, it's just coming up here. 1 minute. So this is the user interface of the Exodus Converter tool. And there are a few options that you can set prior to actually starting the conversion, things like are you actually converting pieces out of the database, actual stored procedures and things like that. We do offer the option to convert those stored procedures into Java classes, but we don't typically recommend it unless you're actually switching databases. But normally we would recommend you leave any of the stored procedures and packages in the database, and we can call them from a Java application just with the standard drivers. Also, we can set things in here if we're using actual reference forms, which is a feature that's available in Oracle Forms applications, where you can set things like visual attributes and business logic within a reference form, and then other forms in the application reference that so that you don't have to redefine it several times. And then other than that, the information that's already completed as input on this page are variables that can be set within a configuration file. So where are the input files, the files that we're going to actually convert? Where do we want to generate the actual Java code to? What directory should it be in? What's our database connection? Things like the presentation layer, which Matt also mentioned. Do we want to just create a plugin version? Do we want to create an ADF Faces version? Things like that can all be set on this page. So if we go ahead and we start the conversion process, there are several choices on this list, and we typically start with the libraries, the PL SQL libraries. They're, of course, the common pieces to the application. The routines that are used or that are defined in these libraries can be called from any and all of the forms that are in the application. So they're the common pieces. So there are a couple of libraries within the Summit application, so we're going to convert them. And these are separate steps for libraries, menus, and forms. And at the end of every conversion step, we are always going to get this conversion report, which simply gives us the information on what form we converted, when we converted it, and was the conversion successful or not. In this case, obviously we've converted this application literally thousands of times. These conversions are successful, In the case where it had encountered, where the tool had encountered something that was not supported or something it didn't recognize, there would be an error message in that conversion log file to show us in what file and at what line and some indication of what the error was so that we could go back and resolve that and then try the conversion again. And now I'm just going in, there is one menu in the Summit application, so I'm just going to convert that menu. And again, we get the conversion report. And then the last step of the conversion piece is to actually convert the forms. Those are the three types of modules. So, and you'll see that there are several sub-steps here within the form module conversion step. If I was to convert a form and then decide that I wanted to change a list of values or possibly some of the PL SQL, because this tool actually converts all of the code in a form, regardless of whether it's the user presentation layer or the business logic. I can go back and change just a piece of it and just reconvert that particular piece of it. In this case, we're starting from scratch, so I want to do all of the steps. I want to convert all of the pieces in the forms. So I'm going to say I'm doing a form conversion, and there are 3 forms in the Summit application. So I'm going to choose all 3 of them. I can choose as many modules or as few as one module is converted at any particular time. And again, it depends kind of on whether I'm grouping an application together or whether I'm working on one particular form. It's really a matter of preference as to how many you convert at a time. This is just a kind of a parsing process. So you could choose 50 or 100 forms and simply start this process to convert them and walk away. And it could take a few hours. In this particular case, for the demo, again, not a huge application. You'll see once we finish this step, we will have converted the entire application, the library, the menu, and all 3 forms in less than, maybe 5 minutes. A larger application with larger forms, obviously the parsing process may take longer, but it's still, it's not the significant part of the project. It's the small piece of it, really. It just generates the code, and then the work goes into testing that generated code and making any manual modifications that are necessary. So this is the last conversion report, and on the form side, it actually breaks it down into those smaller steps that we have the choice to convert on. And again, we see that all 3 forms went through successfully. So at this point now, we have generated the Java code for all of the modules within the Summit application. And the very last step then, and Matt mentioned this, is we would create a WAR file, a web archive file. And that just takes all of that code that we just generated, as well as all of the Java classes that are used to emulate that Oracle Forms runtime. And it takes all of that source code, which is in reality the entire application written in Java, takes all of that and builds the WAR file. And again, we get a message at the end to say whether it completed successfully or not. Once we hit this step, we are now done with the conversion process. So that's a fairly compact, simple operation to run. And then we would go ahead and we would deploy that WAR file in whatever on whatever application server you choose to run, as long as it supports a Java application. This particular case, we're just running it with Tomcat. But this is the converted application. I just want to bring kind of both of them up. So this one on the top left, this is the original Forms application. And now this one here on the right, this is the converted application. So you'll see, and this is the plug-in application, and the intent behind this is obviously to make it as similar to the original Oracle Forms application as possible. And you'll see that although the fonts are a little different, colors are a little bit different. I'm not sure what I've just done there. Let's just go back here for a minute. Okay, I've got some trouble here this morning. Okay, so but this is the main form in the Summit application, and let me just try it. The tab components. Oh, I'm sorry, I am experiencing technical difficulties here.
Well, that's okay. You're still able to show the screen and stuff. You know, you're showing navigating through, so we can always just move on to the business logic.
Yeah. Okay, that's what we'll do. So. Let me just go back then. In this particular case, I have the generated code here in JDeveloper. This is version 10.1 of JDeveloper. This just happens to be the IDE that we use here in-house. Again, any IDE is, again, as long as it supports the Java code, you can use whatever IDE your development team has in-house. So here, this is the plugin version deployed within JDeveloper. So I'm just going to stretch down here a little bit. Under the application sources folder, this is where all of the business logic is kept. And then under the web content folder, this is where all of the actual user presentation layer is. So if we just want to look at some of the converted PL SQL, we'll just open this up with the application sources. Looks like we're having a little, it might be internet, it's a little slow this morning. But I'm just going to drill down here. This is the standard hierarchy that we always create when we're generating Java classes from the application. You'll see that there are folders here for the libraries, the menus, and then Summit, which is the form. We just used the application name for the forms directory, and these are the three forms within the application. This structure is very similar to what you see under the Oracle Forms Builder development environment. So, and that's done very intentionally so that for those developers that are coming from maintaining the Oracle Forms application and moving into the Java world, this will give them some degree of familiarity with the converted application and a better idea then of where they might find the various pieces of code that they're looking for. So within the customer form, then I see the blocks, and within each block, I see the items. Again, similar to what you see in the Oracle Forms Builder. And at every level here, there will be at least one Java class. In some cases, there are multiple classes depending on the level of detail required. If I'm going to call up the Java class at the customer form level, and then we'll just scroll through it so that you can see what the generated code looks like. Just taking a minute. Okay, so let me just stretch this out a little bit. So this is the generated Java code in the top right panel of JDeveloper. And it's always, regardless of where you're looking at the generated Java classes, at what level, item, block, or form, it's always going to be in the same kind of structure so that you'll, again, so that it becomes very familiar to you and it's easy to find your way around in it. We always start out with this the import statements, which of course is for the libraries. This is for the libraries from your application, as well as those express libraries, which are the pieces that emulate the Oracle Forms runtime. And then you'll see here where it's setting the form properties. And if I just scroll down a little bit, I see alerts being set. And then I see this is actual PL SQL code that's been converted. I just want to point out that all of the original nomenclature from the Oracle Forms application is maintained in the Java code. So things like trigger names and procedure names are all exactly the same. And this is showing, this is for a list of values. Again, all of that maintaining those names from the Oracle Forms application. The other thing that's maintained are all of the comments that are put into the Oracle Forms application. Again, if that's a way that you use to document why changes are being made in the application, you'll keep all of that history in the generated application. You won't lose that type of documentation. So that's what the PL SQL code looks like when it's converted to the Java code. So that basically is what I want to show as part of the demo. So the analyzer results, the actual conversion process, the output, and then the source code of what it looks like. In this particular case with the plugin version, the output on the user presentation side are XML files. The key difference between it and the ADF Faces user presentation layer, of course, is those files are HTML. So that's the difference between the two on the user presentation layer. But as far as this business logic goes, it's identical regardless of which presentation layer you choose. So that's what I have for the demonstration today. So perhaps we can open it up to questions and answers at this point, Matt?
That sounds good. So if you can switch back over for the if we can switch back over to the slide piece, there we go. So what we'll do now is we'll open it up for the Q&A session. And again, the way to do that is on your WebEx toolbar, use the question mark button and post your question. We'll go silent here for about 30 seconds or so, 60 seconds, just to give you a chance to start posting your questions, and then we'll start reading through them. All right, we're going to go ahead and start going through the questions. So the first one we have is, what's the difference in effort between a low-level complexity form versus some of the other complexity levels, like the very complex? So I don't know, Lorraine, why don't I start with that one, and then I'll let you add on to that.
Okay, sure.
So basically, yeah, you notice there's those, we talked about in the analyze phase, those four different. It looks at groups them into the four different categories from very low to very complex. And I'll give what I think are rough estimates, and then Lorraine, please add the reality to it. But when you're looking at those forms from a conversion standpoint, I think what we typically see is on a low form, it's probably about a low complexity. It's probably a half-day effort to do conversion, and I think that includes unit testing. Would that be fair to say, Lorraine?
I'm sorry, you just cut out on me, Matt. Would you say that again?
Sure. I was saying that for a low complexity form, the effort involved would probably be about a half day, and that would include unit testing?
Yes.
Okay. And then for a moderate one, it's probably on average about a day.
That's right.
And then, when you get into complex and very complex, you start getting into anywhere from, I would say, 2 days to 4 days.
Yeah, 4 or 5 days. Absolutely. That sounds right.
For the very complex at the far end of the spectrum. So again, though, with the analyzer, you can start to look at those and and come up with a very good estimate of what it's going to take, and we help you with that.
And one of the things that really affects the difference between a simple form and a very complex form, a simple form might have one canvas, maybe two canvases even, with maybe 7 or 8 or 10 data fields on it. In the case of a very complex form, you may have 7 or 8 or 9 tabs on it, that are canvases that are all absolutely, there's no real estate left on the canvases. They're absolutely chock full with all kinds of information, drop-down lists and lists of values and things like that. And so not only is there a lot to look at and ensure that it's all lined up properly, but you can imagine in order to unit test something like that, the test script would, should walk you through every single one of those canvases, every single one of those tabs, and every single field, and every kind of combination of if you enter something on the first canvas, then does that force or does that trigger the third canvas to come up, and that kind of workflow that happens between the canvases. So those are all things that factor in making that it's more complex in the sense that there's just that much more going on with it, and it's going to require that much more testing to ensure that all of the functionality is maintained.
Great. In fact, I would say, too, a very good point to emphasize in what Lorraine just said as well is that, so in describing the level of effort in terms of days, a very big portion of it is the unit testing in those added days as you go up in complexity. But yeah, you're right. I'm absolutely amazed on some of the customers we work with how efficiently or how well they're able to squeeze a lot of stuff into a limited amount of real estate. It's truly amazing. Okay, next question. One second here. There's one in the chat, so I just wanted to make sure we got to it. Can I see the ADF HTML presentation layer? You can. We're not going to show it at this time because we actually have that available in the pre-recorded webinar that we did last month on the different GUI options. So we'll go ahead and just point you to that. If you go on our website to the pre-recorded webinars, you'll find one on the GUI options. If you can't find it, we'll just contact your Unified CipherSoft representative, or if you don't have one, contact the administrator for this webinar, and we'll make sure we get you the link. So we want to go ahead and address the questions pertinent to today's webinar, but absolutely you can see that. Or we can arrange for a one-on-one if needed, if you have a specific project in mind for it. Okay, next question. We're interested in converting Forms 6i to Oracle Forms 10G. Will the tool perform that conversion? No, this tool is specifically for migrating Oracle Forms applications over into Java and into a pure Java environment. So the tool doesn't help you convert it to Oracle Forms 10G. Now, we do those conversions as well. We offer that as a service, and we can work with you anywhere, and again, depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for assistance in the migration, we can play across a wide spectrum of a support role for you or project management role to actually doing that Forms 10G conversion for you yourself. And we'd be more than happy to talk to you about that and what you're trying to do with your upgrade, because we do a lot of those. It's an interesting time now, too, to be talking about 10G upgrades, because I think that Oracle has just announced a new cycle, if you will, in the 10G support, where I think it's going into extended support. So it's getting more expensive if you want to go to 10G. So we would talk to you about that as well and see whether or not you should really consider 11G. But again, that is a whole other infrastructure in itself. Although, again, if you're going from 6i, I'm not sure if you've invested in the 10G app server stack from Oracle or not. So anyway, short answer is no. This tool doesn't do the upgrades. We do offer that as a service. Certainly, we have a lot of background there on it. And worst case, we're more than happy to even just talk with you about it and give you some guidance and direction. All right, next question. Do you offer maintenance and support on the tool? Yes. So again, and maybe I should take a moment, I'm thinking about this based on the last question we just had. So, we've talked in this webinar today about the kind of the proven steps for doing a migration with the tool. And we see with customers, some of them actually license the tool and do the migration themselves. And in that case, yes, we offer maintenance on the tool because, as I mentioned, as we do projects or as customers do projects, we do find things that are, hey, there's more we can automate in the Oracle Forms migrations based on stuff we see. So, and there's those standard Java classes and libraries in the Express that, we constantly improve on for the Oracle Forms framework, if you will, being recreated in Java. So we offer that as annual maintenance, and we do offer support as well to assist you in the migration if you're going to do it. We also offer training. In fact, with about 4 to 5 days of training with the tool, you are more than proficient enough to do the project. We had one of our customers with this is the government of Malaysia, and they actually did the training via WebEx for the entire project. 1 week of training via WebEx, and they were able to successfully do their project. So yes, but we also offer, besides licensing the tool, some folks, especially if they have smaller projects, they choose to have us do it using the tool instead of investing in licensing the tool and coming up to speed on it, because once you convert it, you're done. I mean, you have the Java code, and you don't need the tool moving forward, if you will. So we offer it as a service as well, and in that case, you wouldn't need the maintenance or the training necessarily. Okay, next question. How easy is it to integrate third-party products in with the converted application? Lorraine, do you want to answer that?
Sure. It's somewhat dependent on what the third-party product is. But typically, once the code is generated, it is standard Java code using standard OJWC drivers. So we simply need to look at the code that's generated, and it will probably need to be modified manually in order to call that third party. But we've done instances where we've called other like Microsoft Office products, where we've called Pro-C code, various kind of scripting languages for different things. It's just a matter, it's kind of unique to each third-party product, but there's really nothing out there that says to us it can't be done. It's just a matter of looking at each individual product. What did the call look like on the Oracle Forms side, and what needs to be done with that call on the Java side?
Yeah, typically it works out, but if there's concerns there, that's something that we can always look at as part of your selection process, if you will, or the sales cycle, and look at doing a proof of concept or something on that integration to ensure that there is a way to do it.
And one other thing to add there, one of the other or kind of key differences about things is, especially if you're coming from a release of Forms prior to 10G, like 6i or something, and that was in a client-server mode. So typically, if there's a call to a third-party product, that execution is happening on the client side, And so now that we've gone to a kind of a web version of the software with the generated code, by default, whatever action was happening would get called on the server side rather than on the client side. And so that sometimes is what the piece is that we need to be able to change or to control or to tweak, because it's happening by default in a different location.
Great. All right. Well, that's all the questions that we have. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up now. So just for summary, just some of the key points for you to kind of walk away from in this webinar is, first of all, you saw we did what this solution does is a full conversion of the Oracle Forms application. Everything, including the business logic and the data access. And compared to a rewrite, this is a 90% reduction in time. And in terms of costs, it really depends on a couple factors for each company, but all the companies we work with have put together very compelling business cases. And in some cases, they've walked away from a rewrite that had already been going on for, 1 year, 2 years. And the costs associated with that for staffing a rewrite versus being able to do this in 6 months or less, even with the licensing costs of our tool, the return that they get on it, and being able to leverage, the Oracle Forms developers and their experience in the app already, there's a pretty compelling business case there versus a rewrite. As we talked about, this is not a 100% pure automatic conversion. There is some manual effort involved, and a lot of it is, though, really the unit testing and the user acceptance testing, which you'll have with any project. But your risk associated with a conversion versus a rewrite is greatly reduced. And then the other thing is there's no proprietary code going forward. This is all converted into pure Java. As I mentioned, you get the Java source. It's all Java library, standard Java libraries and classes. So you get all of that, and you can maintain it moving forward without any dependency on CipherSoft once it's done. And then I also included the graphic with the 4 high-level phases, as kind of the other takeaway in the summary. The analyze, prepare, convert, and accept. So Lorraine and I want to thank you for attending today. We know for those of you in the U.S. that attended, it's tax day, so I'm sure you have your taxes to submit or extensions to file, but we appreciate you doing it. And just some upcoming events for you to keep in mind. We're going to be at IOUG actually this says booth 324. That is not correct. It's booth 526. So if you're going to be at IOUG, please come find us. Come talk to us. Whether you're looking to migrate to Java or you're looking to upgrade to a later Oracle Forms release for right now, we can help you with either. Also, we've got some other shows coming up. I'm not sure if we're going to be at the Utah OUG now, but we may be there. So if any of you folks are there from Utah, let us know if you're interested in that, and we'll plan accordingly. We will be at the ODTUG in D.C., though, in June for sure. And then we do these webinars monthly, so stay tuned. We'll invite you to the one for next month. Not exactly sure what the topic will be yet, but we'll keep you posted. And on that subject, when you exit the webinar, you'll get a little survey response. Please take 15 seconds and let us know how we did. Did you like what you saw? Was there something you didn't see in this that you were expecting? And if there's a topic that you'd like to see in one of the monthly webinars, please let us know. These are all driven from feedback on the webinars. On one of the last ones we did, someone said, hey, talk to us a little bit more about the actual conversion process. And so that's how this webinar came about. Thanks again, and have a great day.
Thanks, Matt.